So the title for the session today is They Say They've Learned, How Do We Know? Online Assessments for Learning. And it's something that I've been learning about myself as I taught through a whole semester of online teaching and learning. So these are just some of the things I thought would be nice to share with everybody. And just kind of a heads up, we are going to be learning some content. It's not necessarily related to assessments, but I think in order to fully understand assessment, we've got to, in a sense, experience it ourselves. So I hope that's something that everybody gets to take away from today, an experience of what it means to do online assessments, and then be thinking about, as instructors, as teachers, how are we then doing that for the learners in our classrooms as well. Yeah. So thank you again, everybody, for being here. We're just gonna head on to the first thing, and it's about button badge design. I'm not sure if you know what button badges are. It's those badges that people have lots of designs. A lot of people make them themselves, and lots of different people have actually made a business out of it. But there are just three things I think that are really important when it comes to designing button badges. And so the first thing is to keep it simple, right? Keep your design simple. The second one is to try and keep it to 3 colors. So from a design perspective, don't have too many colors in it. And the third one is to keep the design within the circle. Okay, so just 3 very, very short design tips or design principles, if you like to think about that way. And if we can just keep that at the back of our mind as we move forward, we're going to go to a short task. Okay, so circles. I'm sure we're all familiar with circles, something that we learned in kindergarten. So here's what we need to do. So with one of the blank A4 papers that you've got, I need you to draw 30 circles. Okay. So for this next task, those 30 circles are going to be button badges, right? And you're going to have a minute to fill them up. So if you can, just draw those circles. If you can see my screen, oh, it might be quite hard. I've got an A4 paper here, and on it, I have drawn 30 circles, okay? So if you can go ahead and do that. Yeah, so let me just go back. So if you can just do that, we're not going to start right away, but let's just draw the circles. I'll give you 2 minutes to draw the circles, and then we'll get started. Okay, I hope you've managed to draw your circles. And as I mentioned previously, what we're going to do now is going to have 1 minute, right? And you need to turn those 30 circles into button badges. Okay, so if everybody's ready, here we go. In 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and time is up. All right. So how many people manage to finish all 30 in that 1 minute? Can you just show me by a raise of hand? If you can raise your hand, show me how many people have managed to finish in 1 minute. Anybody? 1? Oh, great. Tula Sivantana. Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, just 1. Okay, cool. Nope, still drawing. Only 5. Great, awesome. Most people said no. Okay, that's fine. That's completely fine. Still decorating. Only 8. All right, awesome. Thank you so much for putting that in the chat. So, do you think it's possible? I mean, we've got 1 person who did it, and I'm really excited to see how he or she did it. I'm sorry, can't really tell from the name. Don't want to assume that I know the gender, right? But before we have a look at that, so I thought, you know, it'd be kind of nice to have a short conversation about the exercise. Yeah. So, did anybody think this was easy? Was this an easy task to do? Thank you for everybody who just joined. I am so sorry that we've impossible. Diana, thank you. For people who just joined, sorry, we actually had to start because we don't have a lot of time. Ishalini, thank you. It's interesting, but needs more time. Shooting, easy, but needs time, not an easy task. Instructions were clear, expectations were too high. Okay, sounded easy, time constraint made it difficult. Nope, due to time limitation, great. Okay, so simple. Ayman. I think Ayman's kind of getting the idea here, right? So kind of depends on the design. Example to keep it simple. Yep. So let's go back to very quickly the 3 things, right? So keep it simple, keep it to 3 colors, and keep the design within the circle. So are we able to do this within the time frame that was given? Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to show you. Okay, you know what? I'm not going to show you what I did, but I think I want to talk a little bit about assessment, right? What's the goal of assessment, and what are we trying to do when we talk about assessment within the confines of the classrooms and the classrooms that we have? And typically, when we think of assessments, the first thing we think about is tests, right? Thank you, C8987, 5 to 10 minutes to draw 30 circles. I agree with you, but there's some caveats, right? So again, with assessments, we usually think of tests, we think of quizzes, we think of essays, open book exams, and so on. But the reality is, if we understand the goal of assessment, and the goal of assessment really is to know what our learners know and what our learners are able to do, I think we would have perhaps a slightly different perspective about what assessment is. Okay, so for the people who were drawing and whatever, if you could actually just maybe turn on your camera or take a picture and share that picture in the chat, that would be really interesting, because I'm interested to see what people have done. Yeah, so I'm just gonna hang back for maybe a minute, and if you could share what you've done, that would be really awesome. Ayman? Oh, ooh, it's not very clear, Ayman. Oh, I got, okay, yep, some smileys, thank you. Some other people, C8987, okay, is that blank? Okay, Amy, oh, hi, Amy. Yep, heart, yeah, so it's quite simple, kind of like icons, right? Shooting, thank you. Oh, those are buttons, nice. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. So I'm just going to show you mine. I hope you can see it. And realize that it's not the easiest. There we go. Okay. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about what I did. And what I did was I just drew very simple smileys, and for each line, I drew a different one. So the top line is the typical smiley face. The second one is a smiley, but with a straight line for the mouth. The third was an unhappy smiley. The third one had a squiggle for the mouth. The fifth line was a smiley, but with dimples. And which is the same for the last one because I knew I was running out of time. But I was able to achieve the assessment goal. But to be fair, I knew the strategy ahead of time. But again, coming back to this idea of assessment, so when we set out, we've got a goal, right? We want to know how much learners have done. And when you're faced with something like this, right, people who didn't complete the task, you're then given an opportunity to be able to give feedback. How are you going to guide somebody to say, okay, you've done this is good, and this is how you can do better, right? And some of the principles behind this are things that I'm sure most of you are familiar with, which is the idea of assessment for learning. So this is theory, or not quite theory, but some principles that were very popular, I guess, early 2000 onwards by Black and William, and Paul Black, Dylan Williams. And essentially, if you kind of condense it all down, there are three main principles, right? So one is what are the learning targets? What are the goals? And the second one is you need to know where your learners are at. What are they capable of doing? And then you provide feedback to guide the learners to the goal. So what I've just done is I've given some targets. I ran a short assessment. I gave you a minute to do some button badge designs. And based on what you've given me, a couple of people who shared, thank you very much, I know where you're at. Now I gave you some feedback, and I said things like, yes, you're kind of on the right path. So we talk about smileys, but it could be anything at all. It could have been a repeat design, like what's shooting that, and it could just be repeated. I didn't say it had to be different. That wasn't part of the goal. That wasn't part of the instruction. And I showed you my example, right? And so these are some of the types of feedback that we can give students, and we're talking about an online platform. And if you realize, we're still able to get feedback, still be able to share feedback with students, even though it's online. And it is a little bit different from a classroom, yeah? So just keep some of these things at the back of your mind as we move along. But thank you everybody for doing this. I hope you had fun. I'm just going to give a shout out to Tim Brown from IDEO, which is a design company. This idea is not mine. I'm not going to take credit for the originality of the idea, but it is something that you could use in class with students, just as an icebreaker or a way to get students to be thinking differently. So yeah, just moving on. So we're going to take a short creative break before we head into the next section. But if you've got any questions, any thoughts along the way, please put that in the chat. Really excited to hear what you have to say, and yeah, so that we can respond to that as well. But the first thing you need to do is pick a color. So choose between red, blue, or black. And on an A4 sheet, can be a different A4 sheet, could be the same one if you want to save paper, totally fine with that. Write your name using the color that you've picked on the top. Okay, so you just need to write your name in the color that you picked. So if, for example, you pick black, and write your name in black on that sheet, and take a picture of the name that you've just written, right? So write your name on the sheet, take a picture using your mobile phone. I'm sorry, I'm assuming that everybody's got a mobile phone that's handy, and save it somewhere that's easily accessible. We're gonna use it shortly. Okay, so if you've got questions about this, please put it in the chat, and we we'll get to that very soon. So I'm just going to give you 2 minutes to do this. And if you are actually already done, we've got about a minute left. I'm not rushing anybody, don't worry. If you need more time, let me know in the chat. If you're already done, if you could just raise your hand, that would be really good to give me an indication of where we're all at. Thank you, Sinyi. Hi, Sinyi. Long time no see. Thanks, Yan, Cecilia, Jivita. Thank you. C8987, thank you. Jay, thank you. Ayman, thank you. Maslin, thank you. Susie, thank you. Joanne, thank you. We've got about 20 odd seconds left from the original time link. Ida, thank you. Kim Gek, thank you. Christina, thank you. David, thank you. While we're waiting for everybody, thank you, Shireen Christopher. Wow. Sorry, I forgot the other part of the name wrong. Christopher was easy. While we're waiting for everybody to be done, that's 2 minutes, by the way, but I think we can give everybody maybe another 30 seconds. I'm just really curious how many people have been forced to do this online type teaching, and what's your experience like? What have you liked? What have you not liked about the experience? And if anybody else has used Teams, looking forward to hearing from people. Suk Ching, done but can't upload the picture. No worries. You'll be using it shortly. It won't have to be in the chat. Jayanti, thank you for joining us. If I could just ask you to maybe just mute your mic, that would be awesome. Okay, so I think most people have done, it looks like, and I'm just going to move on. And even if you're not completely done, no worries. If you can't actually get the picture, don't stress too much about it. But yeah, if you can, that would be awesome. And we'll be using it shortly, don't worry. Okay. So the next topic, so the first topic was button badges, and we are moving a little bit away from button badges to this idea of divergent thinking. Some people might be familiar with this. I'm not an expert, I'll be the first to admit, but I thought it would be useful for the purpose of what we're doing today. So divergent thinking is the ability to think widely as opposed to narrow. So a lot of times when we think about thinking, we're kind of moving things down from very big ideas to things that are a bit more specific. And the idea with divergent thinking is we start small and then we kind of go wide and be expansive and exploratory, as opposed to kind of trying to make things simpler and less complex. So the idea of divergent thinking, you want to come up. And the goal really with divergent thinking is to come up with as many possibilities rather than focus on a single option or single answer, single strategy. So typically in school, what we learn is the opposite of divergent thinking, right? Which is convergent thinking. We're told that there's only one answer, there's only one right idea or right way of doing things. So I thought divergent thinking is kind of nice to explore a little bit because it is typically contrary to what we're used to doing a lot of the time. If you've ever been in a brainstorm session, divergent thinking is kind of the essence of a brainstorm, right? So that's divergent thinking. And so we're gonna look at some application. And this is called the paperclip challenge. Some of you might already know this. And if you do, great, that's fantastic. If you don't, hey, we're always here to learn new things. So I want you to imagine a paperclip, right? And I want you to take 2 minutes to think of as many users for that paperclip as possible and write them down. Yeah. So we're gonna start shortly, but let's see. Okay, yeah, I've got my timer ready. So if everybody can imagine a paperclip, I'm quite sure that's fairly straightforward. Let's go. How many users for a paperclip can you come up with in 2 minutes? So 2 minutes has started. Again, if you've got questions, please put that in the chat. Happy to answer those when you can. Thank you, Christopher. You were on Google Classroom. I was going to try Teams, but school reopened. No worries. Oh, thanks, Jay. Thanks for the feedback. So, Jay, I would like to give you some feedback on your comment very quickly. You just needed to pick one color and write your name in that one color. Now, if you wrote your name in 3 different colors, that's fine. Pick one for the purpose of what we're going to do next. But thank you for letting me know. That also tells me my instructions were maybe not the clearest. You just needed to pick one color and write your name in that one color. Okay? So we're at just under a minute. So again, the task is to think of as many ways to use that paperclip as possible. And right now, what I'm doing is I'm just lowering people's hands. Thank you for raising your hands earlier. And we'll keep the raising hands for questions or responses just a bit. So just don't mind me. If you raised your hand because you wanted to ask a question and I just lowered your hand, please let me know in the chat. Did not mean to or ignore the question. And we're at 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1, and time. Thank you, everybody. I'd like you to stop writing down users for paperclips and maybe just let me know in the chat how many you were able to come up with in the 2 minutes. If you can just let me know in the chat. Seven, 15, 3, 5, 7, shooting 4, J4, ME5, Nura, Isha. Nura, okay, sorry, I'm just going to go with the one that I can pronounce easier. 6, 5, 9, Christopher, Susila, 8, CD4, Guru Temp. Sorry, I'm sure you've got a name. I'm sorry, I'm just reading what is on the chat. Please let me know what your actual name is, Guru Temp, so I don't keep calling you Guru Temp. I'm on 3, Jaya, Jayanti 5, Tulasi 3. Thank you for that. So I think the highest was 15. Right, we got 15 from somebody, and I think the lowest was 3, and that's fine. So again, the main thing right now is not to be looking at quantity, but to be thinking, about the task itself. So divergent thinking, paperclips. Let me just take you through some ideas and perspectives on it. So let's just have a short talk about the activity. I'm quite sure that it sounds like, or it looks like, a lot of people were trying to think, like, what else can I use the paperclip for? I think the people who've got more, what were some of the more unique ways to use the paperclip that you came up with? maybe Christopher, Susila, what were some of the ways that you thought were not common?
I don't know about not common, but you can use it like, for your phone, like if you want to open the
SIM card tray.
yeah, it's like like a reset thing, like some
Yep,
electrical devices.
that's
Okay.
great.
Yeah, the rest I think is a bit simple, like the normal ones, as a hair clip, earring. You
Yep,
can use it to make a necklace.
yep.
You can use it to clean your hairbrush.
Clean your hairbrush. Okay, that's a new one. I've not heard that one. Thank you.
Bookmarker.
Yep.
And sometimes I don't know, maybe it can work as a safety pin or something.
Sure.
Okay, that's like eight. I have 8.
Thank you.
Okay.
Christopher, if you got anything that's different from that, could you just maybe share that with all of us? So we're all learning together, right? So now if you didn't have any of those options, you can add that to your list. Christopher?
Stir coffee.
Sorry, say that again.
Stir coffee.
Stir coffee. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a nice one.
As like a weapon.
A weapon, yeah.
People.
Sure. Getting a bit violent, but it's okay. We're all adults here.
using it as making drawings, like scratching on a crayon, like that.
Sure.
Lock picking.
Yep. Completely. If you know how to pick locks, right?
And the rest are the same as the previous speaker.
Thank you, Jayanti. Christopher, I see you've got your mic on. Thank you. Could you please share with us some of the ones that are different?
No, that was me.
Oh.
I'm Shireen Christopher.
Oh, oops, sorry.
It's okay.
I just see the bubble, so I'm not sure who's speaking. Jayanti, did you have something to share?
Yeah, I can use as a decorative tool,
Decorative tool
for hair, for dress, and so forth. And as a friend said, safety pin, yes, I have used it before. And as a tool for opening something which is very fine and so forth, we can use it. And also as a marker.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. We'll have Vishalini in just a little bit, but I think we've got C8987. Sorry, what's your name? So I don't keep calling you C8987.
Hi, my name is Fatin.
Hi, Fatin. Thank you.
Okay. So I share the ones that I listed.
Yeah, that are different that people haven't mentioned already. If you could.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hook accessories.
Ooh, yeah. Cool. Yes.
Okay, hook accessories, connector and conductor.
Sure. To connect stuff and to conduct electricity, I'm guessing that's what you mean.
And also chain and maybe like bracelet.
Right. Sure. To make a bracelet. Yep.
And indicator or label like that, so that because there's different kinds of paper clips.
Sure. Different colors. So, yes. Awesome.
And then also maybe like a compiler. I think this one like the most common one, but can be like a compiler.
Sure. To put things together. Nice. Thank you. Vishalini, very quickly, if you could share other things that have not been mentioned, if there were others. And everybody, I hope you're adding to your list at the moment, and you should have more than 10 by now. Vishalini?
Okay, hi.
Hi.
So I just thought about some arts and crafts. So I was thinking maybe we can use the clips to come up with toy car, fish, ducks, t-shirts maybe, or you can do a craft like heart-shaped craft, and then mini shoes, and then
nice
you can use it as a pencil, and then anklet. How about anklet? And you can come up with nice photo frames.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all.
Sure, lots of possibilities. So I hope everybody's got kind of an idea of where we're kind of moving with this. And just wanted to share, there are a couple of principles when it comes to divergent thinking. And a lot of times we put kind of roadblocks and obstacles to ourselves. So A couple of perspectives to consider. We were thinking about the paperclip. What was the size of the paperclip that we were thinking about? I'm quite sure most of us were thinking about the standard paperclip that was, I just happen to have some here, this size, I'm not sure you can see it, which is really kind of small, right? But what if the paperclip was a lot larger? What if it was the size of a car? Would that change the way that you use the paperclip, right? So that's the first one. So do think about this. We're going to do a round two, yeah? So that's the reason why we're having this discussion. What about material? So most of us probably would have thought paperclip's going to be made out of metal, made out of plastic. What if the paperclip was made out of something else? What if it was made out of wood, for example? What if it was silicone? You know, would that change the ways in which we could use that paperclip? Okay, so that's the second one. The third one is shape, right? So again, we're thinking about the standard shape of the paperclip. What if it's not? What if it's round and there are round paperclips? What if it was square? Would that change the way in which we could use the paperclip? The last one I've got here is location. What if we are actually in maybe, let's say, the North Pole or the South Pole? Would the way that we use the paperclip change? What if we weren't on Earth? What if we were in space and gravity wasn't in play? Would that change the way that we come up with different uses for the paperclip, right? And I think one of the things that people here have already mentioned, I think the other thing that we kind of limit ourselves is the number. What if we had an infinite number of paperclips? Would that change, again, the way that we could use that paperclip, okay? So keeping all these things in mind, right? What I would like everybody to do is to kind of try and have a group discussion online. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share 3 documents in the chat. And I hope everybody's going to be able to collaborate on these documents. But the documents are going to be labeled red, blue, and black. So if you wrote your name in blue, please go to the blue document. If you wrote your name in red, please go to the red document, and so on. Okay, so I'm just going to share that here really quickly. Sorry, it's a little bit slow. Okay, here it comes. So that you should be able to, in your chat, very quickly see 3 Word documents. One says red, one says blue, and one says black. So depending on the color that you picked to write your names, please click on the respective color document. And in it, there are some instructions. And please, with your group, put down the different uses for paperclips that you now have. Okay, so I'm just going to be quiet for a while as everybody goes through this. As always, if there are questions, please put that in the chat, and we'll get to that shortly. Oh, 2 seconds, sorry. Okay, here they are. Sorry, I forgot to press the send button. I hope that you see them shortly. It still says sending. Okay, should be there. Apologies. Thank you, everybody, for letting me know that the documents were not in the chat. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. That was the one thing that I was worried about. Okay, so you can't access the Word document. So let's, I have a feeling it has to do with Teams. So let's do this differently. Since we can't do it on the Word document, I know it's going to be a bit crazy, but if everybody could share 2 different users that they came up with more recently after looking at some of the different perspectives and hearing. Let's see if we can kind of compile that over here. Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. This was something that I could not really test beforehand. So like I mentioned, let's, instead of doing the document, if everybody could just share 2 different uses for the paperclip. Yeah, just type it out in the chat. That would be really, really helpful. Thank you, Christopher. And again, apologies to everybody else. But this brings up something that's useful for future discussion. Ruler, make into shapes. Thank you, Emmy, Yan, to make pastry bread design. Oh, that's quite interesting. Okay, sure. Yeah, different users, two different users for the paperclip Fatin. Whatever you were planning to type out in the document. And maybe, I don't want you to waste the photo that you shared or that you've taken of your name. Could you please share that in the WhatsApp group for this session? And I'm going to get Naomi to compile that. Yeah, use as craft, as a chain. So Subchain, what kind of craft, right? It could be a bit more specific. What kind of craft could you now use the paperclips for? Security bags, yes. Scratch and itch, oh, definitely. Fix a hole in the fence, yes. Big size paperclips, correct. Poke holes, yep. Whatever holes you need to poke. Decorative item, tool to access tiny holes or gap, yes, definitely. You could make it into kind of a hook. I'm guessing that's what it's used to button pants, yeah. They're too tight or loose. What else we got here? Pop bubble wrap. Yeah, if you love bubble wrap, my kids love bubble wrap. What else? Where we got? Rings for flashcards. Yes. To dig your ears. Yes, definitely could, especially if it's not metal and it's not gonna end up bleeding. Conductor for metal device. Yes. Public furniture. Yes. Oh, Christopher, that's a really, really interesting idea. An interesting water fountain. Yeah, you could sculpt with it, right? Totally. Toothpicks. Yes. Sarah, thank you. And especially if it's bamboo or wood instead. Face mask fastener, yes. Face masks really get me if I wear it for too long at the back of my ears, and being able to move that would be very useful. To seal a potato chip bag, oh yeah, definitely. Small screwdriver, oh, that'd be interesting. Yeah, especially if the shape, right? You're thinking of the shape in which you can fix it. Photo frames, a mini fish or mini duck. That's interesting. How would you get paper clips to be mini fish and mini bra strap hook? Oh yeah, I'm sure that is definitely very helpful. Paste on paper to make special patterns, sure. So kind of a collage. What is it? Collage with you put different material, hook hold plastic bags. Yes, definitely. And that's really, really awesome, guys. Thank you so much for putting that all down. And so before we get to kind of wrapping up, we're kind of getting to the end of the session already. If you think about what we've just done, right? So there was some principles, some ideas at the beginning, and we did one round, 2 minutes. Everybody puts down what they want, you know. But I think one of the important things was that there was no penalty. Implicit in the instructions was that you needed to put more down, but as it went along, it really wasn't about how many you could do individually, but as a group, how many can we come up with? And I hope you managed to catch that, right? And we could do this multiple times. We could then say, okay, now our new target is 100 users. And we could have a discussion of what are the things that we need to think about or that we need to be exploring in order to come up with 100 uses or 200 uses, 300 uses, right? And with divergent thinking, we could keep going, right? And if we really had the time and the interest to sustain it, we could sit down here and we come up with lots and lots and lots of different ways to use a paperclip or paperclips, right? So I think what's important here is, and I hope you're kind of getting on with it, is that with getting feedback from your learners, knowing where they are, knowing some of the things that they perhaps are struggling with, that we are able to adjust or make adjustments to the way in which we are teaching, giving instructions in order to get a better outcome, a better learning outcome. So some of the things with assessment for learning, it comes down to some very simple principles, and we've talked about that already. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with these same principles of formative assessment, right? But when it comes to online, the interesting thing that we've got is that we also have online tools, yeah? And wasn't able to do a lot of the other online tools here today, but there are quite a lot out there. So the online tools are able to help us think about, okay, you know, this is what I would normally do in a face-to-face environment, but now with this online tool, what can we do? What can I do? What's possible now? Is the same? Is it the same or is it different? Right? And if it's different, how can we adapt? How can we change in order to be able to get the same information from our learners that we used to get in a face-to-face environment, right? So in addition, I always think one of the nice things about online tools is that it forces us to think about our assessments differently. So let me give you a very real example. So when I knew that we're going to do this session online, that it's going to be via Microsoft Teams, and I use Microsoft Teams for teaching, but some of the functionality is not able to be here. And just for example, sharing those documents is a very clear one. It made me have to rethink the way that I run the session. It made me have to rethink, okay, what can I get everybody to do? And one of the goals I set for myself is I didn't want any of you to leave.
Microsoft Teams. Sebab connect hanya sebab dia orang kata security, tapi although
can I get you to mute your mic, please?
Why not? Macam ayam.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everybody stayed in the chat, didn't have to leave the chat, didn't have to leave the platform. And that was the goal I set for myself, right? And so that changed the way I thought about the session. But using some of the other tools online, and I probably can't demonstrate it right now, but it allows us to also kind of leverage on software and AI. And one of the things that we use a lot of is Microsoft Forms. And we are able to very quickly get summaries and graphical analysis of the responses that we get from students, right? So that's the nice thing about being online. But I wanted to really, at the end of the day, focus on this idea that human perspective and human touch really is probably the most important thing in an online session, right? Whether we are looking at assessment or even instruction, I feel that we can very quickly make online learning very cold, very distant, and very impersonal. And I think a couple of people have mentioned it earlier. I actually go out of my way to try and address as many learners as I can individually in the class, because it's very important in order for us to be able to get interaction and ultimately the we want from students. Yeah, so just a couple of things that I wanted everybody to be thinking about at the back of your head, and to also realize that it doesn't always have to be a fully digital environment. Yeah, so this is the last one that we have for today. So it's a quick reflection. So again, you can use a piece of paper, you could use your phone, you could type it out on a document that you're at. Just thought we'd do a quick reflection. I was going to give you a reflection template, but clearly I can't do that right now. But maybe I'll share my screen with you to just share some of the reflection questions that I've prepared. So yeah, so just take maybe about 5 minutes to reflect on the experiences that you had, the whatever we've experienced right now. And let me just share the reflection questions with everyone. So So I hope you can see the reflection questions. There are just 5 of them. And if you could just take 5 minutes to maybe just put some thoughts down before we close. Oh, okay. I've just been told that we are actually out of time. I'm so sorry. Thanks, Naomi. Sorry, I just saw your message. So I think you need to head over to the next section. I am sorry, I kind of went about 2 minutes over time. Thank you everybody for being here. If you can, do drop us the reflection. I really would like to know what you thought of this, the session, and if you learned anything, and if there are ways to improve it. Yeah, thank you everybody for being here. I better let you go because I think we are kind of short on time. Thanks, Tulasi. So I'll see everybody. I'll see you guys again. I'm going to be emceeing the last section. So see you at 11:30 after.